Okay, quick video here. I said I was going to do one on cheap holsters. Before we get into that, let's just say that I don't always conflate cheap and inexpensive. To me, those are two different things. So what we're getting into here is, if you haven't seen the videos on all the 9 Plus Shield magazine issues we're having, check those out. But since I had the M&P 9 Plus Shield, I had bought it, never handled one. I used to carry a Diamondback DB380 in my pocket. Everybody's like, oh, well, it's a Diamondback. Yeah, it was a inexpensive gun. The first one I bought, I got for $119. So, very inexpensive gun. You know, no frills, no bells and whistles. But it did what it was supposed to do. It was the lightest .380 pocket pistol. I could easily carry it in my pocket. It was about the size of my wallet. Was reliable. Didn't have a magazine, or excuse me, a slide hold open on it. That's one of the downsides, but that was because it was basically the lightest .380 pocket pistol, which weighed 8 ounces roughly. I actually weighed mine. Mine came in just a hair under 9 ounces. But you're talking about a gun that's 9 ounces unloaded. You know, you cut all the frills everywhere. Accuracy, I routinely shot Pepsi cans at 50 yards. A 50-yard shot on a Pepsi can with that little DB was nothing. Won lots of bets on it. So, anyway, I had never handled the M&Ps. It's like, well, it's 9mm. Uncle Jerry, when I got the DB380, he decided he wanted a small. He'd always carried a 36 Chief Special 38. He decided he wanted a semi-auto, and he's like, nope, but I have to have a 9mm. I said, the 380, correct shot placement, modern ammo, nope, gotta have a 9. Well, he got the 9, and because of the size difference, the DB9 is barely bigger than the DB380. Also another, be 17,000. So, I mean, you're looking at an low-level 70% increase in chamber pressure. You got to have a heavy spring. Well, the DB9's not a bad little gun. Shoot great. But most people can't rack the things. They have such a heavy recoil spring in them because of the size and because of the extra power of the 9mm. A lot of people have a lot of problems trying to rack that slide. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But that was just a reference to, the difference in inexpensive and cheap. The Diamondbacks at that time, they were very inexpensive, very well-made guns. For example, my little DB380, the first one I had, I put about 7,000 rounds through. That's getting a little extreme. Most people that own any pocket pistol, they're not ever going to put 7,000 rounds through it. Most people aren't going to put 7,000 rounds through a full-size 9mm. But the fact was, I put 7,000 rounds through that little thing, and still, Pepsi can, 50 yards, no muss, no fuss. And that's with a double-action only trigger pull. Inexpensive, but not cheap by any means. So, when I got the M&P here, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to need a holster for it. I didn't realize it was quite as big. I should have went with the Bodyguard 380 2.0. That's more of a pocket size gun. The M&P is a little big for pocket carry. Now, those of you that know me, my general EDC is a 6.5 inch 629 Smith & Wesson 44. So I generally EDC a 44 Magnum, IWC, and concealed. Excuse me, IWB. But, okay, well, I got the little 9, so I'm going to get a holster for it. So I checked around, and I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on holsters. I know holsters are expensive. To me, most of the holsters are way, way overpriced for what they are. And I understand, you don't want to cheap out on a holster. You want something that's going to give you good retention, something that's going to give you comfortable carry. But they're all pretty much plastic. They're just plastic. And $60 for a plastic holster, to me, is just ridiculous. I know I'm old school. I'm 53 now. Back in the 80s, I did a lot of custom holsters. And anybody that knows me know I have an extensive background in working leather, among all my other things. But, again, I'm just sitting in the chair here and trying to hold the camera steady. But my holsters that I made, you got me in the 80s, I was not quite into my teen years then. I was born in 72. In the 80s, I'm custom fitting, actually form fitting leather holsters to the guns. My holsters were basically on par with Bianchi, as the folks back in used to call it. But yes, my holsters were on par with anything you get from Bianchi. And Bianchi, at that time, Bianchi was the pinnacle of holsters. I mean, there was nothing better than the Bianchi. But it was also, I'm not commercially producing them. I'm a kid, sewing leather, stitching. But it was a good quality, handmade, high-grade leather holster, handmade. But not on a commercial scale. Bianchi took it commercial. And I still have some of the holsters I made back then for my little 4-inch 66. Again, I was 5 years old when I got the 4-inch stainless 66 Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum. Didn't like the holster selection available, so I made my own. So anyway, in this new modern commercial world, Amazon, Walmart, internet, you got a plethora of pretty much everything. And nowadays, everything's went synthetic. Everything's went plastic. So I was like, well, I don't really like Kydex, which Kydex is fine. Most people, they're going to have a Glock, and they're going to get a Kydex holster for it. Well, the Glock's a cheap gun. Just run of the mill. And people don't worry about, hey, I'm going to scratch the finish. I'm going to, it's a Glock. It's a tool. It's equivalent of what we used to call back in the day a kit gun. Now, what the kit gun means is a kit gun is it's something you throw in the tackle box when you're in the boat, or you carry in the glove box of the truck when you're driving around. Hence the term kit gun. So, you get a Glock, you get you a Kydex holster. You're going to get some wear in places on the gun, but people don't care. They're not trying to keep, this isn't a thrice blued Smith & Wesson with a royal blue finish. It's not a Colt Python with the extremely deep and dark black blue beautiful original Python finish. And yes, my Python, I got when I was 13, but it was a 55, so it was a first production run year Python. I mean, looked like it just came out of the box. So I was 13 years old carrying a 6-inch Colt Python. I worried about my holster selection, but I also carried it in a Sidekick, Uncle Mike's nylon shoulder holster. No problems. So with the advent of Kydex and all the modern stuff, the question is are cheap holsters a good thing or a bad thing? Well, what I call cheap, a lot of the nylon holsters, made in China, made in Taiwan, it's not even ballistic grade nylon. I mean, it's the stuff that Mama's shopping bag's made out of. They're flimsy, they're chintzy, they can fail. The last thing you want's a holster that's gonna, oh, oops, hang on just a minute, my holster just ripped and my gun fell out. So yeah, cheap's not always a good idea. So I was looking on Amazon, I was going through. I did not have an optic on the gun at the time. I've never had an optic on any handgun my whole life. Again, I'm 53. I always shoot irons. I shoot 200 yards with iron sights on most of my handguns. I'm also drinking strawberry lemonade to keep my throat going here, so sorry for any pauses. But I was like, well, I need a holster for this thing. I hate appendix carry. I've never been able to stand appendix carry. 6'3", 33-inch waist. I'm getting fat in my old age. So at 6'3" with a 33-inch waist, I carried a 629 Smith & Wesson Classic. Classic with a full underlug barrel. But I carry that gun in jeans and a t-shirt, and nobody, I've walked into police conventions, literal police conventions, with 200 police officers in there, and not a one of them had an idea I was carrying that big of a hog leg. That Smith & Wesson, the 44, fits me. The way it rides, the way it sits, it just fits me. It's comfortable. I don't even know it's there because it sits right above my hip bone and right under my ribs. That's just where the gun comes naturally. And that's with a rope holster, which that's another video we're going to get into. But, everybody's like, well, nowadays, that's not a proper holster, and, another video. Anyway, today is on the inexpensive versus, high dollar holsters. Are the high dollar holsters worth it? Are the cheap holsters not worth it? And it's like everything. It's a yes and a no. Generally, a cheap holster is something you want to avoid like the plague. However, there are some holsters out there that are inexpensive, but are good holsters. And there's some holsters out there, there's a lot of the holsters out there, I'll be honest, that are just way, way overpriced and really not worth it. So, I just thought I'd bring this up because I got this holster as a trial. I thought, well, I can try it. If I don't like it, I can send it back. I've got another 30 days to send the thing back if I don't like it. And I do have some problems with it, which we're about to get into. Again, sorry, lemonade balls. I've never really liked carrying IWB other than the 44, and that's just because there's something about my body size and shape that carrying a 54-ounce unloaded revolver, 6.5-inch barrel, it fits. But normally, I have a hard time carrying IWB. Again, 6'3", 33-inch waist. They poke, they pinch. Of course, you get into your Freedom holsters. I don't even know the holster companies because I really never got into the Kydex holsters and that kind of stuff. But anyway, they make the, it's like a big square that goes against your body. Then you have the Kydex portion that's fitted for the gun shape, roughly. Okay, all fine and dandy. I can't use that type of holster for the fact my waist is so slim. They don't wrap. You're wearing a 44-inch waist, hey, great. They don't work for me. So I saw this holster on Amazon. It was $14.95, $14.98, whatever it was. Ended up being, I've still got the receipt for it. It was $16.45 after tax. Because now we have to pay sales tax, even on the internet. So anyway, I thought I'll try it. If I don't like it, I can send it back. And the main reason I got it is I was looking for an optics cut. At that time, I had not put an optic on the gun. In fact, the optic that I ordered, that's another video, is the ADEs. That will be a separate video, but I ordered it the same day. I got the optic in, I think I ordered it on Thursday. I got the optic in on Monday, didn't get the holster till like Wednesday. But I wanted a IWB. Well, it had to be an IWB. I couldn't find anything for outside the waistband that wasn't bulky and completely sticking out. I prefer outside the waistband carry. But I could not find any holsters for this gun. Again, we're just going with the Smith & Wesson M&P Plus. But I couldn't find anything that didn't even print as much as my 45. I mean, these 9 holsters were printing more than what my 1911 belt carry holster or my paddle carry holster would print. So anyway, I was like, okay, IWB it is. Long story short, I know this is getting to be a long video, apologize. Came across this holster. It's Holsterhood. Yeah, not name brand. But again, another thing I do not like about Kydex or any of the plastics, they do wear the finish on the gun. Now leather, repeated holstering, drawing, that's where the term holster wear came from. I've had to touch up a lot of guns just because of holster wearing. You will get holster wear, bluing rubbed off revolvers on the cylinder and into your barrels. The leather would actually wear the bluing off. So Apologize. I'm filming this on the phone and somebody called in. So anyway, holster wear was always a consideration. That's why I like ballistic nylon. That pretty much eliminates a true ballistic nylon, and a good quality nylon. That pretty much eliminates any of your holster wear. Phone might get a little shaky, so I'm having to switch hands here. So when I came across this one, I just assumed from the picture alligator. I just assumed it was press molded plastic, but I thought I'll try it. Yeah, I can always send it back. Well, when I received it and I didn't look at the box, which as you can see there says hybrid leather polymer. When I received the holster, I just thought it was faux leather, just like my Safariland now. That's when paddle holsters had first came out. At that time, I was still carrying a Beretta 92. Full size, straight 92. I was 16 when I got my 92. And I also needed, later years, I was like, okay, I need a good duty holster. And I used that Safariland. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I'm thinking the number's like 7738. Anyway, it was the Safariland paddle holster with the thumb snap. It was a level 2 retention holster. Had the thumb snap, had the trigger block in it. But it was a paddle holster. Loved that thing because the paddle fit my hip, molded to my hip. But it was not leather. It was faux leather. It was synthetic. But it was also suede lined. So being suede lined, that greatly cuts down on your holster wear. Slows you down on the draw if you're trying to quick draw, but we ain't doing quick draw with these things anyway, so we're not figuring it milliseconds. So it was a suede lined synthetic holster. I assumed this was synthetic. Come to find out, after examination, this is actually real leather. But it's leather over polymer. So the pluses to this. Construction is beautiful. It's stiff, it's sturdy, holds the gun very well. Now when I first got it, I did have a problem that the molding up here, it was a little heavy. The arch was a little too closed, and it wanted to grip the gun too tight. So again, I was worried about draw wear. I loosened the screw as far as I could. I actually took the screw out of it, and the gun was still tight to get in it. So what I basically did, I took the screw out, and I just kind of flared it open, kind of worked it a little bit. But now, since I generally leave the gun in the holster most of the times, it has kind of formed around it. And no, it's not real alligator hide, it's just leather. I'm guessing this is pigskin leather if I had to guess. But very nice, supple leather. So what they have done is they have put leather over the polymer. Well, downside, and it does have a very nice, and as you can see here, the sweat guard on it. Again, I'm behind the phone, and I got a little bit of lag time, but the Sweat Guard, nice coverage, and it's soft, nice movability. And again, there's the leather. Well, they've put it over the polymer for rigidity, and actually also they did send and that's the way it came, you know, sheet bedding and everything in it. But we have a spare belt clip for it, which I will use to illustrate this. And as you can see right there on the belt clip, that's a very, very thin layer of leather over the outside of the belt clip. Now, that's pretty much for aesthetic purposes. It doesn't matter if your belt clip is plain plastic or, you know, if it's coated, but it's a polymer clip with a thin layer of leather over. So this holster has leather on the outside, which is nice and tacky. As you know, anything in leather, it's going to give a grip. That way when you go draw the gun, not only do you have your belt clip that's going to keep it from coming out with the gun, but this, as you can hear, against your insides, that's going to retain the holster in place. Also, with the leather, as you can see on the inside here, I apologize for the lighting, it does cushion the gun. It helps retain the gun, but it also makes for a nice smooth draw. So we have leather over plastic. It's also very, very, very easy for one-hand reholstering. I mean, one-hand reholstering is nothing. That's where I have the problem. As you can see, the overall thickness of the holster is bulky. That's going to be the downside. This has to fit between the waistband of my jeans and my hip. So that's where I have a problem with this at, is the overall thickness and the bulkiness. Again, why I don't like IWB carry. I actually had to go buy new pants because with my 33 waist jeans, there wasn't enough room to get this between my pants and my hip bone. So I had to step up my jeans to a larger size. So that's one thing. Having to buy a new wardrobe, but that would be with even any, thin blade Kydex holster. It would still be the same issue. But the bulkiness is a turn off for me. As far as fit to the gun fits it beautifully. Does have adjustable tension screw. I can adjust that. But also with it being leather on both the inside and the outside, not just the outside for looks, the leather will help retain the gun as far as sliding slickness. I've seen a lot of Kydex holsters that even with tension screws on them, if people squat down, their gun pops out of their holster. If they bend over a certain way, the gun will slide out of the holster. So the leather does add a level of retention, but also with that added level of retention, it still allows for a smooth draw. If that makes sense to you. So, as far as that, it's good. Now, the other problem I have here, and that's just, going by this particular holster, is the way the belt clip is designed and the way the belt clip is mounted. There is no adjustment on that. It's one size only. So the problem I have, well, let me get this back here. Being that I needed the optics cut, and that's why I opted for this. With the way it sits inside the waistband, and with me particularly, again, not everybody can wear the same holster. That's why there's so many out there. But with this not being an adjustable clip, when I IWB carry this, my optic is below my belt line. So the optic actually rides inside my waistband also, which I haven't had any real issues with it yet, but that could be an issue on the draw. What I would like to see on this particular holster is being able to adjust the height. But then again, this is also short barrel. You really don't have a whole lot of options on how high you can carry. That's where I like belt slide type holster if I'm outside the waistband carrying. Pancake holsters, the old style pancakes, it held the gun high up where, your belt slots, instead of your belt slots being here, your belt slots were down here, but they were wide, and the belt tension would actually hold that, so your gun can't out. So therefore you carry it higher, but still sturdy. But again, this is just one example in the example that I have. Again, this holster was just over $16, and it's the first one I've tried. No, I don't like the fact that there's not an adjustment for the height, but it is what it is. They might have other models, and the fact to give you an extra belt clip, just in case. But I did check the belt clip, and no, it's not where, you put a shorter belt clip on, change the height rise, anything like that. It's just an extra belt clip in case you break that one. But overall, as far as the other holsters I've compared in the Kydex holsters, I'm a lot more satisfied with this than the $60 holster that I tried out in the gun shop. I just couldn't stand that thing. So it goes back to the difference in cheap and inexpensive. Know what you're getting, know what you're looking for. I mean, why would I spend $60 on a cheap piece of plastic that probably costs $1.45 to make? But then you also don't want to spend $9 on a made in China piece of nylon that's thinner than your granddaddy's handkerchief. So that's the thing. It goes back to quality, stability, and not price. A lot of things are overpriced and not worth it. A lot of things are cheap and definitely not worth it. So look at the build quality, the build materials, the fits. And again, like I said, I haven't talked to this company. I was going to call them, but now made in India. Now it ain't American made by anything. Most of the stuff you're going to get is not going to be American made unless you start going into Bianchi, Safariland, and even a lot of Safariland's not even American made anymore. But it's just a showing of just because something isn't pricey doesn't mean it's good quality. And if something is pricey, that doesn't mean it is of good quality. So that's the thing on cheap versus inexpensive. And I guess I'll leave it there, and y'all have a good one.